sitting on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
And it went on to the wrong one. Good start.
What happened?
Hey, I'm FTFE. Welcome back to the channel that does to stupidity what looking at the transit of Mercury without some kind of soda filter does to your eyes. We're here with a debate tonight, and I'm looking forward to this one because we have Lemonbird back on the channel. This is your third time on the channel now, Lemonbird. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Tonight I'm going to ask for you to explain some things which are easily explainable on the globe, but I don't think that there are explanations for on the flat Earth, so that should be fun. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, the man that looks like Morgile on a diet, is Team Skeptic. How you doing, mate? He's not talking to me now.
What the fuck did you just say? What did you just fucking call me?
The Morgile on a diet?
Morgile on a fucking diet. Alright. Somebody's been researching jokes. Alright, okay.
I do try. And as
Hello,
ever,
everybody.
we also have the disembodied voice of Sean Hufford. How you doing today, sir?
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm disembodied. Yes, I'm here.
Yay. We're gonna have fun tonight. I'm looking forward to this. Monday night debates is always a good laugh. YouTube have been nice to me, guys. YouTube have given me the ability to receive super stickers as well as super chats. So if you feel like chucking some money my way, you can waste it on having an animated sticker in the chat, because you know.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. They gave that to everybody.
Shh. I feel special. Okay.
You are special, but not in the nice way.
Yes, I am. But yeah, let's get on with it. So, Lemonbird, there's been something very special happening today, which, as far as I'm concerned, there is no explanation for on the flat Earth, the transit of Mercury across the sun. Do you wanna briefly talk us through that on a flat Earth?
Well, on a flat Earth, we're not seeing curvature from laser tests and from infrared imaging. Therefore, gravity as a post hoc theory, namely as a theory that explains how matter is pulled into a heliocentric ball, falls apart, and therefore the planets being formed by that gravity ball-making mechanism is called into question as well. It appears that the bodies that we're looking at up there may not even be physical in some cases, because we're seeing things like galaxies spinning way too fast for gravity to explain without, filler like dark matter and these placeholders and equations to explain away the inconsistencies. But if you take away the dark matter and stuff like that, you just have matter that's spinning way too fast for calculations, possibly not even being physical. When you look through your own eyes through a telescope, you just see blobs of light, which in some cases look like they're undulating in water.
Okay.
So they may or may not even be these things that we think they are, and may not even be pulled by gravity orbits in the first place. It may just be something else.
So
Lemonbird, can I ask a simple question? That's really nice and all what you just said, but can you actually address the question that was asked?
It would be several things. It could be the firmament. A deformation in the firmament that we're superimposing to the light beyond the firmament, number one. Number two, it could just be a light, a blob of ethereal light that is just passing in front of the sun. Number three, it could be a dark star. The ancient world spoke of dark stars, translucent, see-through bodies that occasionally cause eclipses and get in front of other bodies and obscure them. There are other possibilities as to what it is. That's three right there.
Wow. Yeah, so none of that really makes any sense or gives me any actual substance as to what it is, because the thing is, with the heliocentric model, we can predict these things centuries in advance. based on the physics of the universe as we understand them. We don't need to, invoke any mystical, ethereal bodies or translucent dark things. We know what it is, and it fits perfectly within our model. I mean, there is literally no inconsistencies at all. We can calculate the transit of Mercury down to the second, thanks to things like Kepler's law and Newton's laws. And it matches perfectly with our predictions of what it should be. Now, one thing I do want to bring up straight away is when you say things like, oh, you look at stars through a telescope with your eye and they're just undulating little pulses. Well, no, that's what happens when you look at them through a P900. Do you want to see what happens when you look at them through proper equipment? You get things like this. Now, this isn't an image from NASA or any space agency. This is from someone that I know quite well. I speak to regularly. His name is Geistview. He's a member of the community. And he has taken thousands of images using his own equipment, which is simply a telescope with a captured device on and a computer program to point it in the sky. So there's no digital nonsense that NASA are programming it because it's just a telescope with a capture device on. And using that, he has managed to look billions of years into the past, looking at things in the sky. And none of them look anything like these undulating pulses that you get when you look through a P900 or a P1000, because those things aren't designed to look at things in the sky. So, no, we can look quite closely at what things are, like the sun, for instance, as you see here. And they're very obviously physical bodies. Mercury is one thing that we have many images of up close. We understand Mercury very, very well. So we can explain it 100% without any ad hoc nonsense. How do you explain that it matches our predictions perfectly?
Well, the way to explain it would be the predictions are probably holdovers from another time and another cosmology. If you look at the ancient depictions of cosmology, they all seem to have a general pattern of flat land covered by some sort of hemispheric dome until recent times. So you really have to ask yourself, what are they observing? Are they observing what's actually up there, or are they adding bells and whistles to it by questionable software, by dint of the curvature of the telescope, imparting spherical geometry to it that isn't actually there?
No,
I mean,
this telescope. Sorry, I just need to stop you because this telescope, it is just lenses. There's nothing that this telescope is going to distort. It is just lenses, nothing else, and it's got a capture device on it. Lenses are round, but you could stick a square lens in there. It wouldn't really matter. The fact is that you don't get those undulating, little pulses and stuff that you see ODTV presenting as evidence of what stars are. You get actual images like this. And let me bring up one particular one, which is... No, it's actually this one. So this is an image that he took of the pillars of creation. And it is the same as when NASA do the pillars of creation, which is this one here, except NASA have much better equipment because they've got stuff in space, doesn't have to look through the atmosphere and everything. But it is the same as a certain section of that. So it kind of verifies that what NASA are seeing is the same as what we can actually get with equipment that we can buy. I mean, and this stuff isn't super expensive. I mean, I think it's a couple of $1,000s worth of equipment, but it's equipment that anybody can get. And there's no, the software literally just points at somewhere in the sky and tracks it. And then what Geistview does is uses the telescope to take a series of pictures, exposures of about 600 seconds, Sean, at a time.
Yes, each exposure is 600 seconds, and he did, I think, 10 exposures.
Yeah,
600 to 800 seconds each.
and then he stacks them on top of each other, so it gives you, a very clear image. So there's no CGI, there's no altering of the image. It is simply the light that the telescope is receiving being captured by the capture device that's on it. So those images you see of the undulating stars are simply because they're being captured with devices that aren't designed to capture images of stars. Now, again, we can use telescopes like this to look very clearly at what Mercury is. And Mercury is very obviously a solid body. Now, the other thing is, there's people that have, the transit of Mercury was visible from America to the UK, right? And if you take the image of a video of the transit from the UK and a video of the transit from America, you could actually use the parallax difference to calculate the distance to Mercury and then trigonometry to calculate the distance to the sun. And it matches our predictions and our model perfectly. You don't have to make these things work. There's no like fudging the numbers to make it match. It just matches because this is what our model predicts. Now, if you look at ancient cultures, they were ancient cultures. They didn't know what was going on. They only had a very basic view of the world, and that was just the immediate world around them. Whereas now we know that there's a lot more to it, and we have better technology. And using the predictions that that technology has enabled us to make, we can calculate to the second where the transit of Mercury is going to be. And you can't make any of those predictions if it's on a flat Earth because there's no basis for that.
The only way that you can make those predictions is with a stable geocentric, if not flat model. Otherwise, you'd have the planet just, rocketing randomly through space, getting closer to certain stars as it goes this way around the sun, further on the downturn on the other side of the sun on, half of its journey. Everything would just be much more unstable, especially if we were moving like that, if everything else was moving like that. You wouldn't have the stability in the sky that you see with constellations that don't appear to, expand, contract,
So
space apart as you come closer to them, get further apart as you come closer to them. And the parallax that you do see is explicable with shining through a firmament of some sort, refracting the light. It is explicable with atmospherics, heat shimmer, temperature variations, and the amount of parallax that we do see is negligible. You could really just count it up to experimental error. And when you're measuring with a huge ruler with a huge tick mark, and one little move to the left or the right means millions and millions of miles, that's a huge factor of error.
Right. So the observations can be very exact, and we don't need to use a ruler. We can literally count the pixels on a screen of the movement. Yep.
Correct. He used one word very specifically that actually irritates me. And I'm sorry, Lemonbird, but I do have to step in on this because you said that if it was the heliocentric model, it's all moving around randomly.
Yeah.
That is so far from the truth.
That I was going to get to that. So the thing is...
Everything about the... Hold on, Craig. Yeah, everything about the heliocentric model is mapped out, timed, and measured. There is nothing random about it. This is why we can make predictions ahead of the time of an event. There's nothing random.
Predictions are easier to make when you have stability. And there's stability in the geocentric, if not flat model, that is not there with the heliocentric model.
Right, okay, so...
That's why I took issue with you using the word random, because there is nothing random in the heliocentric model. That is a straw man, and I'm calling you out on it.
You keep saying that there would be instabilities in the heliocentric model. I'm assuming you mean that you think you would see the stars whizzing around and stuff, and that's plainly false. Yes. And here's the reason why. Okay, all of the stars that you can see with your naked eye are a tiny portion of our galaxy that is moving around the center of the galaxy with us. So you would not expect to see the stars moving in all these crazy random directions because all of those stars are maintaining their relative positions to us and also going around the center of the galaxy with us. What you can do is notice stellar aberrations, which again matches our predictions 100%. And this is evidenced by the fact of the North Star, Polaris, hasn't always been Polaris. There was, ancient almanacs, shipping almanacs, have had to update the positions of stars over the centuries so that sailors don't actually get lost. And the movement, the parallax and the shift of the stars all matches with our predictions perfectly. Now, if these were some kind of refraction off of a firmament or something, then you wouldn't expect to see those shifts that we see. You would expect it to just be a constant, never changing sea of stars. But the stars do actually change. And the amount they change matches our models perfectly.
Then why no changes in the constellations?
There is.
The constellations are theoretically, in some cases, much
Do you know
closer
that they've had to?
than Polaris.
They've actually had to alter the
Why haven't
dates
they
of the
deformed?
zodiacs.
Why haven't they changed and morphed into something else?
Wait, Lemonbird. They have actually had to alter the dates of the zodiacs because of the constellations changing.
But it's the same zodiac. It's the same zodiac turning like a sunspot above us.
As I've said, all those stars are moving around the center of the galaxy with us. But there is enough movement in them that we have had to alter the dates of the zodiacs so that they still match with the constellations. People that were Leo are now Cancer and stuff because of the change of the stars. If the Earth was flat and it was just lights on a firmament or whatever, there's no reason why these changes would actually happen. It's a big misconception and a really stupid thing that flat earthers say that, oh, well, how come we always see the same stars and they're never changing? Because the stars are changing quite a lot in galactic terms, so much so that, like I said, we have had to alter the dates of the zodiacs to keep up with that.
So you're saying that all of the individual stars in a zodiac sign would move together to give you a constant zodiac sign throughout time? That begs belief. I mean, the inconsistencies that have been seen in the zodiac could come from, catastrophic events like Gideon telling the sun to stand still in the Valley of Ajalon in the Bible, taking the constellations of the zodiac out of kilter with the sun when the sun was standing still.
But that didn't happen recently. And also,
yeah, but that would throw the zodiac off.
I'd rather keep the Bible out of the discussions. I don't think imaginary friends need a place in a discussion about the shape of the Earth and stuff. And you can say,
keep in mind that the Big Bang cosmology is Kabbalistic. Therefore, we do have a religion, math as science already part of the discussion. Just keep that in mind.
Yep, but I'd rather stick to verifiable facts. And one of those facts is that the stars change based on our model. We can predict where the stars are going to be. We know for a fact that in about 1,300 years, we're going to have a different North Star. I can't remember the name of what it's going to be, but we're going to have a different North Star. And we can predict what that star is going to be. And we can predict for how long that particular star will be the North Star. None of these predictions can be made on the flat Earth.
Well, the thing is, just as Southern Israelite notes in his analysis of the history of Western science and Western thought,
Are you really
there's no such thing as a paradigm-neutral observation. The point being that you have to have a paradigm in place to interpret the facts. Otherwise, your facts have nowhere to go, whether your paradigm be, in your case, materialistic atheism, or in my case, biblical creation. So you just have to be honest about the paradigm that makes you interpret facts in the way that you do, and whether or not the observations match up with that paradigm or not.
There's a big thing, right? Science isn't religion, all right? Science does not require belief.
I've already shown you how there's Kabbalism at the root of the Big Bang cosmology.
Science doesn't require belief, all right? The position that science holds that position because that is the most logical position to hold. It doesn't require belief. It is based on empirical data. So science is nothing like religion. We're talking about the Big Bang and stuff, and that's completely separate to what we understand of our model right now based on what the Earth is. We can go back in time and look at it's distance. Look at distant stars that show us early portions of the universe, but we are
How
still
do you go back
discovering
in
parts
time
of that.
without an assumption? But how do you go back in time without an assumption of uniformitarianism?
You
There's a
don't need an
paradigm that's part of
assumption.
your
No, no, no.
observations right there. You're assuming
No, wait. No,
uniformitarianism versus special
you
creation.
don't need any assumptions. All you need to know is that
So
the speed
there's
of light is
a
constant.
paradigm right there
No,
that is part of your observations you're not acknowledging. How do you know that everything was...
Lemonbird. The only thing we need to know is the speed of light.
The
180,000
speed of light
miles
can
per
change
second.
if it needs a medium to travel.
No, the speed of light never changes.
It's been sped up and slowed down experimentally.
No.
And if the ether exists,
can you give me
it
some
probably
citation
does,
for that? Can you give me
then
some
it will
citation?
change.
Can you give me some citation? Because light does not speed up or slow down. That's literally not how it works. You can refract light and change the direction of it, and that's a lot more to do with the absorption of the energy and the retransmission of the energy and interference waves and everything. But the actual speed of light, the speed of that waveform, that never changes. That is always constant under all conditions. But yeah, I mean, if you've got some citation that says that the speed of light can actually change, then that would be a groundbreaking thing that would alter the way that we understand everything. Our knowledge of the speed of light allows us to make computers, LEDs, the screen that you're probably watching this on. It's all based on, because we know that C is approximately 300,000 kilometers per second, or 180,000 miles per second. And C is a universal constant that does not change. And there's no assumption in that. That's experimentally proven time and time again.
Actually, the assumption is that light doesn't need a medium to travel, despite the fact that the ether may exist.
No, the aether does not exist. We know the aether doesn't exist. Muggs and Morley, Muggs and Gale all proved conclusively that the aether isn't a thing. That there is no aether.
They abolished it because of political reasons.
No, they abolished it because they didn't.
Of the earth.
No, Muggs and Morley abolished it because they didn't detect any shift due to aether wind, which would have been the case if there was aether. Muggs and Gale expanded on that and confirmed the results. The aether only exists in the MCU. It's called the Reality Stone, I think. But yeah, the aether doesn't exist. Space-time is the fabric of the universe. And light does not need a medium to travel. It's a self-propagating wave. Until that collapses, but...
And the wave be self-propagating, what would keep the wave at the same size? What would keep it from deforming? What would keep it from veering off in this direction or direction? Usually waves need a medium to propagate through. Therefore, that would imply that light needs a medium like the ether to propagate.
That was the idea behind the Muggs and Morley experiment. Our understanding of waves back then, sound waves, water waves, they needed a medium to propagate, which is why the theory of the aether came about, because we assumed that light, being a wave, would also need some kind of medium to propagate, which is why they decided to test for things for the aether. But like the Muggs and Morley experiment simply disproved the aether. It showed conclusively that there was not this substance that permeated through all of space.
The Michelson-Morley experiment disproved the movement of the Earth at 30 kilometers a second. Which should have been the movement of the Earth. If it was moving through the ether, they got an ether speed of more like 6 kilometers a second, which was backed up by hundreds of experiments by Dayton Miller and others that showed a consistent ether drift. But the thing was that this proved Copernicanism and the Earth moving through space, since they could not get the speeds that they should have gotten for an Earth rocketing around the sun. Therefore, since Copernicanism was about to be disproved, they just abolished the ether and cobbled up special relativity.
No, that's completely false. The speed of the fact that Earth was rotating around the sun was a well-established fact. Muggs and Morley knew this to be the case. They knew that Earth was a globe and that the Earth orbited the sun. That wasn't disputed in any way, shape, or form. What the Muggs and Morley experiment showed was that there was not this fringe drift that you would have expected from an ether wind. The further experiments by Marcus and Gale, backed all this up, and then a lot of the discoveries were explained then by Einstein's field equations, and it actually helped us understand what was going on. The fact is that the aether has been disproven. There is no aether. It's just a fallacious argument to say that it could be the aether, because it's been experimentally disproven.
In an article by Live Science, Speed of Light Not Constant, it says the charges of all these particles, I guess they're talking about light, is
light doesn't have a charge.
Model. Light is an electromagnetic wave. It has electromagnetic charges that are part of it. The charges of these particles are important to their model because all of them have charges.
I don't think you know what electromagnetism is.
A quantity called impedance. It's a just a quick paragraph. A quantity called impedance depends on the sum of those charges. The impedance in turn depends on the permittivity of the vacuum, or how much it resists electrical fields, as well as permeability, or how well it supports magnetic fields. Light waves are made up of both an electric and magnetic wave. So changing those quantities, permittivity and permeability, will change the measured speed of light. Therefore, the next question becomes whether or not the vacuum has anything that heat it. Vacuum space has an impedance of about 377 ohms, so there's something there that is resisting electrically.
Do you know what any of that means?
Therefore, light would need a medium like ether to, the qualities of that medium, its speed will change. Well, I guess this wouldn't necessarily say that it needs it, but it says if there's a medium there, it would affect it. Basically.
Yeah, if there was a medium there, it would maybe refract it and stuff. But the fact is that we know that there is no aether there because it's been experimentally proven. Now, let's get back to trying to explain things on a flat Earth.
Nothing cannot exist. Only something can exist.
Okay, wait. You're going off on a tangent.
There has to be something at least like ether there, because nothing cannot exist. That's illogical.
Lemonbird, stop. You're going off on a tangent. Okay, space-time isn't nothing. That's just a straw man argument.
Space-time just stole the ether. That's all space-time did. It's ether.
No.
It's really
not.
Filled with ether.
Right.
And the time is just the clock that's running differently from going through the ether.
Lemonbird, you need to stop and listen.
That's
Lemonbird, you need to stop and listen, okay? Space-time isn't the aether. Space-time is the three dimensions of space and the fourth dimension of time as one unit that we can use to do a lot of calculations, okay? It's not the aether. And let's move away from that.
You can't go forward and backward in time. That's mysticism.
I never said you can. You're going off on a tangent. Let's get back.
Where have you seen that?
Lemonbird.
That's mysticism. You can't make time part of your physical space-time calculations. It's absurd.
Stop. Let's go back to the evidence that the Earth is flat, because all you've done so far is made assumptions, okay? I have explained to you how the transit of Mercury is 100% explained by our model, Kepler's laws, Newton's laws. It all adds up, 100%, no error in the slightest. We literally could predict the transit of Mercury down to the last millisecond. And it's all based on... They just stole
the predictability from the flat geocentric models of before and superimposed it onto their dysfunctional heliocentric model.
No, you're saying that, but it's just completely false.
The zero cycle was known for years, and that was from a geocentric cosmology, at the very least, from the Chaldeans and the Babylonians.
Lemonbird.
The zero cycle was used to predict eclipses.
Yeah, because they could see a pattern. Okay? They could see a pattern. But what we can do is predict things that weren't ever part of that pattern. We can predict things down to the last millisecond. Everything that happens, random asteroids that are coming into our solar system, we can predict where they're going to be and, how bright they will be and everything. And none of those things were ever part of any ancient culture. New things that happen, we can also predict based on our model. So, no, there isn't any taking something from before and superimposing it. All the predictions are, right, okay, so the math says that this is happening. And based on that math, we can now predict that in the future, this will happen. It's nothing to do with taking something from before. It is literally using the laws and everything that we have now and applying them to what we can see. Just because they had a calendar and stuff before because there was a pattern. That's very, very different from making predictions based on laws that we understand. You can't retroactively come up with something like the universal law of gravitation or Kepler's law of orbits and stuff. It's not something that you can retroactively make and then go, oh yeah, that fits perfectly. It fits perfectly because that is what the empirical data gave us. For instance, when we noticed perturbations in the orbit of Uranus, okay, based on the maths that we understand and the laws that we have, we made some calculations because of where the orbit was slightly weird. We made some calculations that in a certain point there should be a planet, okay, and then we looked in that point, and lo and behold, there was a fucking planet. Boom, there's Neptune. And that was all done purely based on empirical observations and the calculations based on the laws that we have. Nothing.
But even they got that wrong. The planet that they predicted didn't have the orbit that they expected.
Nothing.
Even their calculations then were incorrect.
No, they weren't.
Some of these models have, errors in them already.
Wait.
It looks like at best they took the functional parts of the model from before and just superimposed it onto their preferred heliocentric model.
No,
but it may not have that much predictability at all. In fact, you cannot have any predictability unless you know where the center of mass for the gravitational equations is going to be, which is impossible with it, whirring and orbiting around something else, being dragged by something else, being dragged by something else.
No,
being
that's
dragged
wrong.
by the sun,
That's wrong.
being dragged by the galactic center,
Stop.
being dragged by the great attractor.
Lemonbird.
Therefore, you do not have an absolute point in space to make any sort of prediction or any sort of model off of.
Dude.
Actually, you have less predictability with the heliocentric model, not more.
Can you stop? There is no less predictability. And you completely missed my point about the fact that it wasn't even a prediction. We simply noticed something, did some calculations, looked in a point, and those calculations were proved right. You cannot get more empirical than that. Wait, stop.
Even then.
Lemonbird, I'm still talking, right? Please don't make me mute you, all right? So there was no previous predictions about Neptune, all right? It was never thought of before. It was never seen before. We noticed it purely because we noticed the perturbations in the orbit of Uranus. That was it. And we did some maths based on our model, looked in the point where our maths said it should be.
And the maths were still off.
No, it wasn't. The maths wasn't off because we looked in that point and found Neptune. So there was no off. And you're saying that the predictability is less with our model, and that's completely fucking nonsense because our model predicts everything down to the millisecond. So, right, again, so how does the... Right, let's get back to the flat Earth, and I'm going to use the Uranus and Neptune thing. How does the flat Earth explain that noticing some perturbations in the orbit of Uranus, doing some calculations, and finding a planet where we said it should be, how does the flat Earth explain that? And just stick to
it. Just knows general patterns in the sky, probably from a geocentric model. The way that they did in the past.
Probably. I'd like you to be very certain on what you're saying. So again,
when they were trying to predict the orbit of Neptune, they were off. Their calculations were not perfect. They were off even then.
No, they weren't, because we found Neptune. You keep saying it's off, but you're wrong. We found Neptune based on our calculations. Exactly where we thought it should be based on our model. All right? So again, let me just go over it with you because I don't think you quite understand. We saw Uranus and we watched Uranus and we noticed that there were some odd things about the orbit of Uranus, okay? That it looked like it was being pulled in a certain direction. We did some calculations based on the orbit and what we knew about the mass of Uranus and everything. And based on those calculations, we thought, right, if we look at this point in the sky, we're going to find the planet. They looked at that point and found the planet exactly where they thought it should be. It wasn't off. There was no guesswork. The math said something should be there, and it was. How does the flat Earth explain that?
They're just lights in the sky. There's other models that are available that aren't even based off of heliocentrism,
That's
with
not
the
answering
lights
the
in the sky
question.
just having
No,
a
no.
cyclical motion in the sky, like a clock.
That's not answering the question. The question is specifically about how the flat Earth explains us finding Neptune. That one specific observation.
You'd have
How
to
is
look
that
at the
explained on
sky
the
and
flat
just
Earth?
watch the sky. You'd have to
But
look at the sky and just watch the patterns in
but
the
there was a
sky.
lot more than that, right? There was a lot more than that. We looked at the sky, and then we did some maths based on our model. Nothing to do with a flat or geocentric nonsense. We did some
And it was
maths
still
based
off.
on Kepler's laws and Newton's laws.
And it was
then
still off.
it was. If it was off, how did we find the planet?
You just knew that there was something up there, but it didn't quite go with your gravimetric calculations. The orbit was a little off.
It went exactly with our calculations because we found the planet where we thought it should be. That's what you're missing here.
But like I said before, to have calculations work with this gravitational model, you need to know where the center of mass is.
Yeah,
That's
and we know that.
impossible if Earth is spinning around the sun, being dragged by the galactic center, being dragged by the great attractor. You have no way to find it in absolute space.
Okay,
There goes your predictability, and there goes your model.
Lemonbird, do you want to talk me through the maths of that? Because what you've just said is complete nonsense.
To have gravity, you need to know where the center of mass is, correct? Therefore, you need to know where the center of mass is located. How is that possible if you have all of these contrary motions going around something that is going around something else that is going around something else? That's impossible.
Okay, right. So you don't really understand how gravity works. That's quite clear. So let me just explain to you what a gravity well is. A gravity well, if you think about the Earth and the Moon, all right, it is, in astronomical senses, thought of as one thing, the Earth-Moon system. That has its own gravity well. The same as the solar system has its own gravity well. And everything within the solar system is acting within that gravity well, which is mainly caused by the sun, as that's the majority of the mass. But here's the interesting thing. The center of mass of our solar system is not the center of the sun. It is like about 300,000 kilometers away from the center of the sun, because the mass of Jupiter and Saturn are so large that it actually shifts the center of gravity of the entire solar system. Again, based on our model and our calculations and our predictions, which is how we knew that because of the way that Uranus was acting, that there must be another mass acting on Uranus. And based on those calculations that we knew, well, the center of mass of Uranus is here, and if it's moving that amount, then that must mean that there's something with a certain mass and the center of the mass in this point. So yes, we did use the center of masses in the calculations to find where Neptune was. And again, that was based purely on empirical data. We saw that Uranus was acting weird. We did some calculations based on what we knew, Kepler's laws and Newton's laws, and we found Neptune. Boom. There is no error there. There is no taking it from something else and applying it to that. It was simple empirical observations, maths based on what we understand, and it was right. 100% it was right. So
well, I've already explained to you that it's impossible to make any sort of prediction unless you know where the body is.
Yeah, and
so unless you have some sort of way to know the limits of this gravity well, how far out it is, and where its limits are, you have no predictability. You have a general paradigm and a generalized model that you could superimpose anything onto, but you may not have the predictability that you're talking about. At best, it would be rhetorical, but not actual, because you have no way of knowing where it is really absolutely situated in space at all for any prediction.
See, you keep saying that we didn't know where the center of masses were, but we did. And we do know the extent of gravity and the reach of gravity because everything in the universe is literally attracting everything else. And we know, based on the equation Fg equals gm1m2 over r squared, at what distance away the force of gravity will be, which is kind of the basis of the Cavendish experiment, right? Because if you have those, when you set up the torsion bar and everything to start with, you have the counter masses at a certain distance away from the masses on the torsion bar. Now, you increase the force of gravity by decreasing the distance between the masses. And because we know how, because of the over r squared relationship with this equation, we knew how far away things should be as to how strong the force of gravity should be. And it was the same with finding Neptune. We knew that because there was a force acting on Uranus that was making it do something that was what we didn't expect, that we knew that the mass should be at a certain point. There was no worries about how far gravity acts, because Newton's law of gravitational attraction actually tells us at what distance the force of gravity should be. So there is no guessing. There is no paradigm like guessing or anything. It is empirical. It's all empirical. And there's no explanation for these things on the flat Earth, apart from ad hoc things like, oh, well, it could be the aether or some kind of translucent body or refraction off of the
gravity
firmament.
is totally ad hoc. We don't see gravity here in our everyday lives causing any orbit or forming anything into a ball. Gravity itself is totally ad hoc.
No, it's really not. I've just explained to you how empirical data actually showed that gravity was real. And you say you don't see gravity here all the time.
Where do we see gravity forming balls or forming orbits here in our everyday life? If we don't see it here, how is it empirical?
Gravity.
I don't see anything forming by balls here on Earth, and I don't see any orbits here on Earth at all.
That's a straw man, because we know the force of gravity.
It is not empirically verified in any way, shape, or form.
It absolutely is, because we know the strength of gravity based on the equation Fg equals gm1m2 over r squared, and we know that at a certain mass, that equation will. That equation means that at a certain mass and certain size, it will naturally be a sphere, because that is actually the natural shape for things to be. It's like the least amount of energy required for it to be that shape. And we do absolutely see gravity every day, because if you drop something, it accelerates towards the ground. And you can calculate at what speed it will be and how long it's going to take to go towards the ground based on the same equations that we used to find Neptune. So there's no ad hoc or anything about it. Gravity is, and general and special relativity in general, are some of the most experimentally proven things that there has ever been. Apart from quantum theory, which actually has a lot more
experiments. But if gravity were real, the universe would pull itself apart. That's why they had to come up with dark energy and dark matter to counteract the gravitational pulling on everything.
Can I see
your math? That's more ad hoc reasoning there. Why doesn't the universe pull itself apart if gravity was real? Let's come up with dark energy and dark matter, two things that we don't even see down here either. More ad hoc reasoning. Maybe it's time to look at another model.
Can I have the math to back up what you just said? Because we don't have any issues with dark matter or dark energy. There's a lot for us to discover yet. And, wait. There's a lot for us to discover yet. For instance, we know that Einstein's field equations don't work at the center of a black hole.
Einstein's field equations don't work because they don't describe anything physical in this world. It describes something that doesn't have a mass. What's his name? I need to find out the name of that dude who talked about the problems with Einstein's special relativity equations. But basically, he said it modeled a universe with no matter.
Okay,
there are serious problems with those equations, but they went with them because they needed to explain away the ether and the obvious implication that the Earth was not moving and was geocentric.
I mean, you're coming up with a lot of ad hoc things here, but gravity isn't ad hoc at all. Gravity is an observational thing that we then figured out, we applied some Newton.
Where do we observe things pulling into balls or orbits here on Earth? Where do we empirically see that anywhere here on Earth?
Gravity, as we understand it, wouldn't make that happen. So we wouldn't see that happen. But what we do see is every body in space is spherical. And that matches our predictions. There's nowhere in our model that says that on Earth gravity should make things go into a ball. That is not part of our model. And again, you are bringing up a straw man argument. No,
you can't answer because we can't see it.
Lemonbird,
We don't see anything forming into a globe here. We see no orbits here on Earth. Obviously, so gravity at that level is empirically unverified.
No, again, that's a straw man because that's not what gravity says it should do. That's not what our model and our explanation of gravity says gravity should do. However, when there is no gravity or a little gravity being applied because of things like the ISS being in free fall, you see things naturally forming into a sphere. Do you want to see that happening?
But yet again, you had to go to space. You couldn't go here on Earth because it's not here on Earth. You had to go somewhere else, just like you had to go out there instead of here on Earth to quote-unquote again, ball. All of this is highly theoretical. And if we're going to go theoretical, we might as well go with
nothing theoretical.
From say,
sorry,
the
someone's trying to say
all, God.
Lemonbird, stop. Lemonbird, stop.
It's not moving.
Let me break down his straw man that he's doing here. He wants to see things pull itself into a ball here on Earth. There's a problem with that. There is the Earth itself that is already a ball. It's going to pull everything down towards the center of the Earth. It's not going to form a ball on its own because it's already in the influence of another gravitational field.
But you just moved it to another unverified. Has anybody been to the center of the Earth to see with a video something falling from the surface to the center of the Earth?
Strawman.
Empirical non-verification.
Another strawman argument. Right, have a look at this. So, not only are things forming a sphere naturally, because the ISS is in free fall, so there's microgravity, but they can put dye and stuff in it. Let me get a better video. That wasn't actually the one I wanted, but it's a good explanation. A good. Here we go. This is the one that I want. And this also answers the thing flat earthers always say, well, show me water conforming to the outside of an object. That's literally no problem. Because what they do is put a camera inside that bubble. The water is sticking to the outside of the camera and forming a sphere. Exactly as our model predicts it would. And there's no CGI that could do this in real time, by the way. Just physically impossible for this to be done in real time. I've been working with special effects a lot myself, and no, just not possible. This was live. So yeah, there is no ad hoc explanations. There is no piecing bits together from other things. It's all empirical. And we use tools that we have created to get this.
They're orbiting by the sun. I'm going to have to shift the goalpost now to say that the show now where it's spinning and being dragged by the sun without the water flying off due to centripetal forces.
Can I ask you a question, Lemonbird?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll get back to that.
Because there's a, you're hiding behind this. We've never seen gravity do anything here on Earth, okay? And that's fine.
Here on Earth, yes. You had to go to space, yes.
We don't see gravitational waves. We don't see gravitons. We don't see anything like that. So I can understand where you're coming from.
The gravity theory is excessive and can't be empirically verified.
Lemonbird, stop. Let him ask his question.
Let me ask my question. Okay. Do you believe in electricity?
Yes.
Do you believe that electricity works? Okay. When was the last time you actually physically saw an electron do anything?
The last time I was sparked by static. I saw a blue spark.
No, I'm sorry. You did not see an electron do anything at that point, okay? All you did
I believe in electricity, but I challenge the theory of it. Pebbles of electricity.
Hold on.
You have a fallacy of composition.
Pick and choose.
Just because I believe in the whole does not mean that I believe in the part.
What I'm trying to get at,
because the
Lemonbird, stop. Let him finish his point. Goodness me.
Listen, what I'm trying to get at is you can't pick and choose how you want to be criticize evidence or theories or suggestions. You can't say, on one hand, I'm going to be this way about gravity because it suits my personal worldview, but on the other hand, I'm just going to disregard that complete train of thought when it comes to electricity because I just believe that what they say about electricity is true. When have you ever seen an actual electron do anything that somebody that tells you that talks about electricity at the fundamental level? When have you ever seen an electron do something they say? Never.
But that's a fallacy of composition.
Never.
But
no, hold on.
But that's a fallacy
you
of composition.
Applying a different train of thought. That's you applying a
for the
different
part
train of
is true
thought
for the
to a
whole.
different.
That's a fallacy.
I'm simply pointing out the flaw in your logic. You take your you can apply your logic when you want to, and then you disregard that logic when you don't want to.
But you're committing a fallacy of composition.
I am saying what? Hold on. I'm saying that your logical reasoning for disregarding gravity is completely illogical. Okay, because you disregard gravity for the exact same reasons that you accept electricity.
But by that logic, your country can be led by people, whoever, and Donald Trump are like that. That's a fallacy of composition right there. You're saying that just because I accept part of the theory, I accept the whole, and that part of the theory being true makes the whole thing true. Sure, I believe in electricity, but I don't believe in the electron because I haven't seen an electron. I haven't seen a little pebble of an electron. Could be an expression of the ether. There could be another model that could explain it in a verifiable, justifiable way, given further experiments. Until we see a pebble, an electron pebble, we can't just assume that they're electron pebbles just because they came up with that model. We need to verify. Yes.
So,
yes.
We
know
that
everything has to have.
How do you verify something you can't see? How do you verify something you can't see then?
Yeah. Now,
just
let
like
me
with
answer
the
that.
ether, it may get very theoretical, but you just see, okay, can we build off of this, assuming it's real, and see if anything else can be explicable based off of that paradigm in place. Once the ether is in place, it explains a lot of stuff.
Do you have any evidence? Do you have any supporting evidence for the ether, or is that just a complete ad hoc explanation that you're coming up with right now?
Hundreds of experiments by Dayton Miller noted a consistent ether drift. And if you take the Michelson-Morley and the Michelson-Gale experiments together, they prove the ether. The Michelson-Morley experiment, the movement of the Earth through the ether. At best, it was the ether gently swirling over the Earth. The Michelson-Gale experiment got the ether speeds that they predicted within 97%.
Lemonbird,
proved that the ether was gently swirling over the.
I've actually linked into the side chat here in vMix the original Michelson-Morley paper where they themselves say there is no ether.
Yeah, lying with their words. Look at their data.
Oh, so
look at
anything
the
I don't like
that they get with their data. They got like kilometers a second.
So you keep citing the Michelson-Morley experiment where they outright state there is no ether, and now it's no longer valid to cite them?
That's because of their agenda to push up Copernicanism and the atheism that comes from Copernicanism, taking us out of our central place in the universe, loved by God, and obviously created so you can push up atheist theories like atheist evolution, atheist Big Bang, atheist Marxism, and all this other stuff. Rather than eat crow, they just made the stuff up.
You're making what is called the false association fallacy right now. You're just linking atheism with any science. Now, Newton was a devout Catholic.
Can I point something out about that? I'm sorry.
Sorry, go on, team.
I just want to point out, I want to ask Lemonbird a question. Are you familiar with the Michelson-Morley experiment? Just so I know what your familiarity with it is.
They split the light beam. It was going slower against the ether. Ether that was commensurate with the Earth.
Have you read
it was more commensurate with that ether gently swirling over the Earth.
Let me correct you on a few things.
Hey, team, you're a little quiet, bud.
First off, no, they did. You know what? My mic is completely turned up, and I'm fucking right next to it. So I don't know if that's on your end. Make sure you don't have me turned down on your end. Okay, so I'll speak up a little bit. All right, so the Michelson-Morley experiment, it did not detect a drift, or it did not detect a drag from the ether, okay? And you know what they did? They measured it twice at six months apart from each other. Do you know why they did that? Because they knew the Earth was going around the sun. They knew that, okay? And they wanted to measure the Earth going in one direction around the sun, and then they wanted to measure it again on the other side going around the other direction of the sun, because they assumed that the ether would be either in constant motion or it would be constantly still. And they would measure the Earth as it went through that. But what they found with their measurements is that their idea of the ether was always stationary to the Earth. They knew the Earth was moving. So that would mean that they would have to give a special explanation, there would have to be something that was special about the ether that made it stay stationary to the Earth, even when the Earth was on the other side of the sun in orbit, going in the complete opposite direction. That's why they abandoned the ether, because there was no group of scientists that thought the Earth was in one fucking place and the ether was too. The only way for that to work would have been for the ether to be in orbit around the sun as well.
But to abolish it, they had to beg the question. They had to assume that the Earth was moving and contracting the instruments via special relativity and Lorentz contraction, rather than saying, hey, if it's moving, shouldn't we have these ether speeds, assuming it's moving through the ether? They had a choice: abolish the ether and pretend that the Earth is moving through vacuum space, or keep the ether and admit that the ether speeds that they got were not consistent with the Earth moving through it.
Yes, it was, actually.
Right, exactly. No, hold on. That's what I'm trying to say.
So they begged the question.
It was not consistent. Hold on. Lemonbird, let me explain that to you. Okay? It was not consistent with Earth moving through the ether because there was no ether. The only way for
it wasn't consistent with the Earth moving through the ether because the Earth is still.
Let him finish his point.
Lemonbird, let me finish my point, and then I'll let you answer, okay? The only way for them to make sense of what they were trying to test was to make the assumption that the ether was always stationary to the Earth. Now that violated observation, because observation shows that we go around the sun. That was already accepted. So the ether then would have to have been stationary with the Earth completely on its orbit around the sun. That's why they abandoned it, because that idea is just as ludicrous as believing that a fairy in the sky created the Earth.
But it's the notion that the Earth isn't moving, and that the ether at best is gently swirling over it. The problem is they're trying to keep the Earth moving for heliocentrism, Copernicanism, materialism, and atheism. It is a political decision.
It's really nothing to do with politics, and again, the false association fallacy, just linking atheism with the discoveries of science, because I can tell you right now, the majority of the great scientists that have existed were Catholic or Christian of some kind. There was no atheism in it at all. They were simply going on observations that they saw. Now, I'm just going to address a few super chats and then we'll carry on, so just bear with me. $2 from Beeble for Life. Lemonbird, how far away are the stars? Well, Lemonbird, how would you figure out how far away they are?
Well, there's a video mathematical calculations based off of perspective, putting the zone of stars at about 20,000 miles away.
Okay, I'd love to see the math behind that, because everything else disagrees. And then we've got a first use of the new stickers from Sly Striking JC Photos for $3. Thank you very much. €2 from MS Digessa. Greats of Malice, New Earth is round 150 BC. 5,000 W1 possibly from Kuesa. Which ancient cultures is he talking about anyway? Because, while seemingly similar, all of them are different. They don't see the same things. Dan Robinson for £5.
Also, I wanted to bring that up. Fight the Flat Earth. I wanted to bring that up. Which ancient cultures had the planet Neptune in their cosmology?
None at all.
And
I don't know about that, but the general.
Do you accept that Neptune? Do you accept Neptune as an actual planet first? That I know it's a ridiculous question, but I just feel like to establish a
That's kind of
like
one of the
your
points I was
understanding of
making.
our cosmology. Do you actually
Oh.
accept that Neptune is a physical planet?
Oh yes, and I also accept there are
Okay,
dark stars in a
Well,
catalog like Ketu and Rahu
okay.
Neptune wasn't part of any
that we haven't
ancient
cataloged
culture,
also.
so right, okay. £5 from Dan Robinson. Using his model, asked this bed end to predict the next 4 high and low tides for, say, Oklahoma Bay. I bet he can't. No, because tides is something I'm going to get to, actually. But that's one of the things I wanted to talk to him about. John Rapp for $5 Australian. Good day, everyone. I'm predicting a scale and magnitude misunderstanding amid incorrect terminology, and I, FTFE, agree that JM Truth should be dumb fuck of the year. Get out. It's Riley. Riley for dumb fuck of the year.
Good one, good one, John Rapp. Good one.
10,000 won from Quessa. Without using any known modern astronomical data, what's the next celestial event our guest can predict with us flat Earth? Can he tell us when the next eclipse will happen? Could you use just flat Earthness to predict when the next eclipse could happen?
You can just use the Saros cycle. The Saros cycle for the lunar eclipses repeats every 18 years, 10 months and change for an eclipse in the same area. And if you want the eclipse in the exact same area of the sky in the exact area, that's a 651-year pattern.
And
The
can
general
you explain,
Saros cycle of eclipses can be superimposed to whatever model you want, and that's a pattern that can be charted and superimposed however you want, heliocentric or flat.
No, but there's no explanation for it on flat Earth. Whereas heliocentrism has an explanation for it, and it's not ad hoc. Again, it's all empirical. So no, you can't.
It's materialism.
You can't predict it using just flat Earth. Okay. $5 from Bubble Buster. Mercury appears as a dark spot in front of the sun, proving it's not a luminary. Same can be said for the moon. You care about facts or your Bible. $199 from Mr. Shigeru. Stop letting me run you over with Gish Gallop. I'm trying, but he doesn't stop. 2,500 claps from Rampant. False, the non-Lorentzian interpretation of relativity can explain the same evidence as the Minkowski interpretation, and it does have ether. $33.33 from Carrie Oliver. He just keeps reading his cue cards, understanding nothing. 2 years from MS Jessa. Does LB know about Himawari 8 saving lives? I can get to that. $5 from Jet Guitars. If light had a charge, wouldn't a Faraday cage bend light dramatically? I powder coat and have Faraday cages constantly, but never notice bending light. As we explained with Nathan Thompson the other day, electromagnetism doesn't bend light because he doesn't know what a ferrule cell is. Oh goodness, I lost it there. Right. Ranger Man 9404, $2. Is it just me, or is LB getting more stupid? And for $1.49 from Soul Survivor, another sticker, thank you. 10 runs from Alexandru Porumbiub. On Earth, air bubbles underwater are spherical. Yes, they are. Very good. Backs up my point. $5 Canadian from Rocket Scientist. Lemon, every time you speak, I feel my brain cells committing suicide one by one. $2 Canadian from Brainy Beaver. Ah, Lemonbird. $5 Canadian from Dean Lindholm. If he can't see it, therefore it's not real, can you please ask him what God looks like? Inquiring minds want to know. €2 from Emma Jessa. How has LB actually read the Bible? Some crazy version, I think. $5 Australian from Andrew Hassett. Has this fool actually seen the ether? $5 from Andrew Stoll. LB, redo their experiments and prove them wrong. You will win a Nobel Prize. $2 Australian from John Rapp. Brainy Beaver. Yes, Lemonbird. Groan. $2 Australian from Matthew Matthews. Team Skeptics. Slap him with your meat tube. $5 from Sean Hawkins. With the angle of the sun to the moon on the AE model, how does Lemonbird explain how we could possibly have a full moon during the nighttime? And €2 from Jared. How is Mercury transit seen same from everywhere? And $4.99 from Oshkosh Bajosh. LB, do you understand what spectroscopy can show in relation to the stars? And $5 from Wisco Life. My wife hates that I watch these debates. Can you tell her, Carol, how much we all enjoy listening to these idiot flat earthers? Yes, Carol, it's a lot of fun. You just need to roll with it, honestly. Right, anyway, so yeah, let's get back to trying to explain things on a flat earth, right? So one thing that is perfectly explained with our model, like 100%, I don't even need to explain it because it is explained by our model, is the fact that we have 2 high tides and 2 low tides every single day. Can you explain how that happens exactly on a flat earth, please?
Even on the heliocentric model, it's not explained. There are bodies of water that have no appreciable tide, some that have more tides than others in the
Did you not
relatively
hear
the
what I
same
said?
area. Not all
No.
places experience tides at the same time. The tides are different duration, different strengths. It's not really a pattern that would be followed from
Right.
heliocentrism
Okay.
with the
You just made a
moon
lot of
passing
claims.
over the meridian.
Lemonbird, you need to
Otherwise, it
stop.
would be a wave that would come over the whole planet at one time, going
No, no,
along
no,
the
no, no,
lines
no.
of
Right. You've
longitude
just made a lot of
following the
claims
moon.
there.
So not even
Lemonbird,
heliocentrism can
Lemonbird,
explain that, but
Lemonbird,
there are
stop.
other
Lemonbird,
ways to
stop.
explain it.
Lemonbird, stop. You've just made a lot of claims.
Lemonbird.
Not one of them is true.
Yeah.
As I explained, the
Hold-
tides are perfectly explained by our models. By our model,
That's rhetorical.
100%.
That's true.
There is
That's
no
rhetorical.
discrepancies with.
Generalized charts and patterns,
No, there
even
isn't. Lemonbird, just stop and listen, all right? There is no discrepancies, all right? And the tides, exactly how they work, is explained by our model. You just saying, oh, they're not explained on the heliocentric model, is not explaining how they work on a flat Earth. I can assure you right now that the tides are perfectly explained by our model. Even lakes have tides. There is like literally tide charts for lakes. Every body of water will have
which
a slight tide,
lakes collect
right? But
connected
wait,
to ocean sources or unconnected.
wait. There
Because if they're
is.
not connected
Oh
to
my
ocean
God,
sources,
Lemonbird. There is no problem with tides on our model. All right. So let's not focus on what you think the issue is with the heliocentric model, because there isn't any. And please explain to me
there
how
are
there is two
several.
high. No, there isn't. There really isn't. Okay. Now, please explain to me how there is two low tides and two high tides on a flat Earth.
Well, if there's something other than gravity, say the electromagnetic influence of the sun and moon, that could be partially acceptable. That would imply that the tides would change based off of the mineral electromagnetic composition of the water. If it has more minerals, more electromagnetic activity, more tide, less tide, depending on how close the sun and moon are, I would probably go with electromagnetism over a flat Earth versus ball
May I ask
gravity,
you a
because we
question?
don't see balls in any way, shape, or form here on Earth with gravity. Otherwise, you could
May I ask you
explain
a
it with
question?
yes.
Lemonbird, may I ask you a question? Okay, so we do know that there's a direct relationship between the geometry of the sun, moon, and Earth that influences how the tides are affected. Is that correct? Yeah. In other words, where the moon is in relation to
You have to
over the
assume the
Earth
Earth is a
has a
ball.
direct. No, no, no. I'm not. I'm saying that there's a direct relationship between the sublunar point on Earth and the strength of the tides. Okay, so that's
Yes,
a
yes.
fact. That's as the in our model, as the moon goes around, it pulls the water, and on the flat Earth model, you're saying that as the moon goes around, it affects the tides. So what electromagnetically instead of gravitationally, like we say.
Go with
Now, if that was the case, then what we see across the Earth is that there's two high tides. Okay, so there's not just a high tide at the where the sublunar point is, but there's also a high tide on the exact opposite side of the sublunar point. How would you explain that on a flat Earth model?
It might be both the sun and the moon. All I can do is theorize and say what other
I don't
possibilities
want you
there
to
are.
theorize. I want explanations for how it is on the flat Earth, because again, it's
Uh,
100%
it depends on
explained
who you
with
ask and
no
whose model you
problems.
consult. I only have one model. There are others out there too. But
You've got a model, did you say?
what was that?
Did you say you've got a model?
No,
Can I ask you a question,
infinite
Lemonbird? Do
plane.
you use the same level of scrutiny? Do you apply the same
To
level of scrutiny
answer
to your own
before I
beliefs
get
that you do?
question
Right.
can be bobbing gently up and down on its landmass on top of
Could you
it.
refresh
Could
your
be
browser? Because
on
you're
volcanic.
cut. One sec, Lemberg. Can
It
you
could be underground
Lemberg,
ionic
one
activity
sec. Can
that
you
leads to the tide
Lemberg, listen.
proximity end
Can you
like
do me a
that.
favor? Lemberg,
No,
you need to listen. Can you do me a favor and refresh your browser because you keep cutting out? Right?
shoot.
This is why listening is important.
Ugh.
Yeah, just refresh your browser
second.
quickly, okay?
Okay.
I'll just quickly get through these other super chats. $5 from Randy Bridges. Paradigm is the new drinking game word. I need a new liver and possibly a kidney. Cheers. And $2 from Jet Guitars. We even see tidal locking on Titan. Yeah, we see tidal locking on the majority of the bodies in the solar system, actually. So now, him saying that there's an issue with the tides on Earth in the heliocentric model is plainly wrong, because there is no issue. It's explained 100%. What was he even on about, that there's issues with the tides? It's explained perfectly by our model.
Yeah, see, my only problem with what they're saying, okay, because I can entertain additional theories, additional thoughts, additional hypotheses, additional just, suggestions. I can entertain all of that, as long as the same level of scrutiny is being applied to their ideas as they apply to the common scientific consensus. Because to just say that gravity doesn't work is just, and then to turn around and go, but electromagnetism, maybe that's what it is. Well, what makes you think gravity doesn't work? Because we have the math that supports our belief system. We have
100%
that says, but can you show me how it works with electromagnetism? And then they say, oh well, no, I just think it does. Well, no, you can't just say that gravity's wrong and you think this is right. That means you're not applying the same level of scrutiny to both options. So then you're going to, no matter what, you're going to be inclined to select the one that's easier to understand, or the one that fits your world belief or your world view. Until you apply, once they start applying that level of scrutiny to what they believe, if they truly do it, then they'll find themselves in the same conundrum that they find themselves in with gravity, because they guarantee they cannot show you electromagnetism on Earth. They can show you how electromagnetism works, just like you can drop a pin and it'll fall to the ground. And you say, see, that's how gravity works. And they say, well, I don't see gravity. Well, you don't see electromagnetism either.
No.
Ever. You just see the effects of it.
$5 from John Rapp. Lemonbird, I'd like some angle packets with that word salad, please. It does appear that he's having issues rejoining. I'm just going to send him a fresh join link.
Yeah, and they keep saying that my audio volume is low, but I'm telling you, I'm sitting right next to the microphone talking. So I don't know if that's on your end or not.
No, I've got you full up here. It's weird. Dave Chowdhury for $4.99 Australian dollars.
It shows. Oh well.
Dave Chowdhury for $4.99 Australian dollars. Lemonbird, I have a model. FTFE, you have a model? Lemonbird, no. All right, let me go back.
All right, so that should be a lot better, guys, because
that's better.
I don't know why my fucking computer, every time I reset my computer or restart my computer, it moves my audio volume down to like 70, and then it resets all my camera properties. So
I've just sent him a fresh join link. He should be able to come back in on that. So for anyone that doesn't get how tides work on oh no, vmix seems to have crashed now, so I can't put that up. Just give that a sec. Wonders in modern technology. Everyone should still be able to hear me, but...
And I'm sorry, I did not want to jump into that conversation, because I wanted, to let you handle it. You were doing a great job doing it, but Jesus, man, that guy is just... He's so, nobody's really calling him out on it. He's using scrutiny. He's using a completely different set of bias for his own evidence than he is for any evidence you put out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think you gave him he gave you 3 or 4 or 5 different options of what it could be, other than the one that you put out.
Yeah. Value S for $5. Quick check before my actual super chat. Does LB believe that the world is a snow globe with the sun and moon circling within it? Yeah, kind of. Right. Lemonbird should be able to rejoin now that vmix is working. And $14.99 Australian dollars from Stephen York. With Melonbird, it's always, it might be X, it might be Y. This isn't a debate, it's a nowhere discussion with someone who is merely being difficult so they can get attention. Possibly, but he's struggling to join back in right now. So, yeah, here is what we were talking about. The fact that you not only get a tide on the side where the moon is, but you get a tide the opposite side as well. And that's explained by the fact that gravity has a proportional relationship with distance. So the bulge of water that is closest to the moon is being pulled the strongest. The Earth in the middle is also being pulled towards the moon, but not quite as strongly as the bulge on the right. And because the Earth is moving towards the moon, it leaves this bulge on the left, which has the least gravitational force acting on it from the moon. So that's the reason why there's 2 low tides and 2 high tides a day. It's pretty simple. Let me just see what's going on with Lemonbird. Can't seem to rejoin for some reason. Why is it that Flerfs always had the tech problems?
Oh, whoops! I have my mic muted there. I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's because they just don't have really good jobs. I mean, there's so many ways. I mean, we could play the Lemonbird line of reasoning and just start ad hocing at reasons. Yeah, they don't have an education, therefore they don't have a good job, therefore they can't afford, modern technology. Therefore, also they can't afford a good internet connection. With those 2 problems combined, having them join modern technology with with our high-speed internet connection is always going to result in some kind of data loss.
High speed,
when you're using 1980s technology, 1980s technology with a 1975 fucking 1400 baud connection is not dealing with today's 2000 fucking 19 T1s.
I've sent him a new link, just waiting for him to join. But yeah, this is Lemonbird in general, really. It's just a bunch of, well, it's definitely not that. I don't really know what it is, but it could be this, or this, maybe, possibly, Aether's real, even though it isn't. All of his arguments are based on the assumption that the Aether is real, but that's been experimentally disproven.
Yeah, for instance, he says it could be electromagnetic radiation that's, that is the cause for the tides, which would then go against the fucking ether theory that he just proposed.
Yeah. Oh, man, I don't know if he's going to be able to rejoin. I don't know why he's having issues. It just says he's logged in, but it hasn't actually connected the call. I see Nathan Thompson hanging about in the chat. Have you recovered yet from having your feral cell thing destroyed? Because, yeah, now I know what a feral cell is.
Hey, I actually said something in the chat. I would like to see if you'll respond. Are you actually still coming to Dallas or not? From what I heard, I guess it was a You Fight the Flat Earth that said that he's...
Someone said that to me,
no longer...
Oh, he put a video up saying that he's arguing with the people that are setting it up or something. I'm not entirely sure of what's going on. Lemonbird's trying to log in. I can see it, but he doesn't seem to be connecting for some reason. Maybe the
it turns out it's going to be extremely cold that day.
Yeah.
Like 20, 30 degrees.
That
Not
pretty
looking
cold.
forward to it.
Yeah, I know. You're so thin. It's going to be hard to keep any warmth in.
Well, I do come with a warning. Anybody that knows me, I tell them I cannot go outside with anything more than a 12-mile-an-hour wind, or I do run the risk of being blown away.
Completely blown
away.
away.
I have to have one of those. Yeah, I have to have one of those little bracelets that parents give to their children so that so they can't get away. I literally become a fucking kite whenever the wind is picked up high enough. It just lifts me in the air and flies me.
Right, just told him to refresh his browser again and see if that works. I honestly don't see the conversation going much further because it's just a whole bunch of ad hoc thrown together nonsense that doesn't really make any sense. Like there is no
and like I
substance
said, you're
from
not
it.
gonna. Yeah, and the thing is there's no intellectual honesty there. There's no integrity there because his explanations contradict each other. Mm-hmm. And they're only possible explanations. There's no confidence behind what he says because he doesn't believe what he says. He just believes that it's what he says it's not what he says it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to argue with somebody that just believes that you're wrong and doesn't have a belief as to why they're right.
I mean, he never really answered the original question I had, which was how do you explain the transit of Mercury not only being a thing, but being perfectly predicted by our model? His answer of, well, they've just taken the predictions and superimposed them onto a model. It doesn't make any sense because our model isn't based on taking stuff from before. It's based on what we can physically see going on and physics as we know it. And then we can make predictions with that. And like it's as simple as that. But man, I honestly don't know if he's going to be able to rejoin. Oh no, here we go. Sending a reply to. There we go. You should be back now, Lemonbird. You there? You've turned off your microphone.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome
Oh,
back.
thank God.
Right. So I wanted to address your claim of that there is issues with the tides on our model. And there really isn't. That's the thing. There is no issues with the tides on our model. The tides are 100% explained by our model. Like, exactly. There is no discrepancies or problems with it. What do you think the problems with the tide is on our model?
They don't have universal strength or universal duration. They vary from place to place.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
completely
there are
understood.
inconsistencies in the model. In some places don't have any tides.
Right, so you
Passes
just
over.
said there's
Some have
inconsistency
appreciable
with the
tides, some
model.
don't.
You just said there's inconsistency with the model,
Mhm.
but there isn't. The different strengths of tides at different points is explained by our model and based on the position of the moon. For instance, you get your spring tides and your neap tides, and that happens when the spring tides are when the sun, the moon, and the earth are perfectly in alignment, increasing the gravitational pull, meaning you get a bigger tide. And the neap tides are when the moon is perpendicular to the orbital plane of the earth and the sun, and you get a weaker tide. And that's explained by our model. There's no problem with it. Tides on lakes are a thing, but they're not going to be as strong as the tides for the earth. Because if you look at this, for instance, right, all on the right side, it's all water, okay? So you've got gravity acting on that entire mass of the water, right? Whereas a lake is a lot smaller, a lot less force because there's less of it. So the gravitational force is less. So you get a smaller tide, but you absolutely do get tides on lakes. I mean, any body of water will actually have a tide, be it small or big. The bigger the water, the bigger the body of water, i.e. the oceans, the bigger the tide will be, because gravity has a proportional relationship to mass as well as to distance away from center and stuff. So there is no inconsistencies. It's actually all explained perfectly by our model.
Well, in certain places you have no tides at all when the moon passes over. There are no tides in the Mediterranean at all.
No tides in the Mediterranean, did you say?
Other tides,
Sorry, did you just say there's no tides in the Mediterranean?
very weak, if any tides at all.
So if how is it that I can pull up a tide chart for the Mediterranean Sea if there's no tides?
There's probably some out there, but compared to everywhere, like normal tides in the Mediterranean.
And
says,
is the Mediterranean Sea as big as the Atlantic Ocean?
No.
Which would mean that you get a smaller tide, as I've just explained, right? But there is tides
But
on the Mediterranean
why would
Sea.
that be?
Sorry, why would
Why
that
would that
be?
be?
Because gravity has a proportional relationship to mass. More water, more mass, more vectors to add up. When you've got all of the, because gravity's acting on each individual molecule, right? And when you've got the sum of all those vectors on all those molecules, you get a bigger tide. But if there's less, then you get less of a force because there's less for the gravity to act on, meaning you get a smaller tide. And again, that's explained by our model. It's not an inconsistency. It is exactly what our model predicts to happen.
But that just makes gravity this occult force that has enough force, when something is big to pull a lot of something big, but not enough force to pull a small amount of something. That's kind of reverse of what you normally think a force would do.
No, again, because the force of gravity is proportional to the mass.
Something is possible. If it can act on a lot, theoretically, it should be able to act on a little as well.
It does.
That makes, gravity sonic and occult.
No, it really doesn't. It really does. There's no selecting. There's no occult. It's a proportional relationship to mass. For instance, a butterfly, it has very small mass. Okay, so it only needs. So it has a smaller force of gravity acting on it, which is why it doesn't weigh very much, and it can give a very small force with its wings to work against the force of gravity. But a car, massive, got more mass, so there's going to be more of a force of gravity. It means it weighs more. Plus, a car doesn't have wings to fight against gravity. But the gravitational force is proportional to the mass and the distance between the two things. And that's all explained with the equation Fg equals g, m1, m2 over r squared. Those two m's are the masses of the objects. So talking about a butterfly and the Earth, the butterfly would be m1, the Earth would be m2. You take the masses of those, and then you use the rest of the equation and the distance between them and everything, and it all balances out because it's proportional to the mass of both of the things. If you have more mass, there's more mass for gravity to act on, meaning you get a stronger force, which means it weighs more. And that's why you get tides that are bigger if there is more water. It's simple.
But the thing is, that's broken by the Red Sea tides versus the Mediterranean tides.
No, it's really not.
Hardly any tides in the Mediterranean, yet the Red Sea has tides, whereas the Mediterranean has comparably none. In the Flat Earth Encyclopedia from Israelite, we read in proof number 21, the Mediterranean
Southern Israelite
tides. This is heliocentric for this lack of tides due to restrictions caused by the Strait of Gibraltar, restricting the exchange of water between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. I pointed out the response of Bartholomew's God, that the same could not be said of the Red Sea and the Bab al-Mandeb, but the Red Sea has tides, 25 times more tides than the Mediterranean. It's 36 9 miles wide.
Now, let me ask you this about the Red Sea. What is one aspect of the Red Sea that is known compared to others?
It's lower down size, it's salty.
It's a lot more salty,
salty,
so there's more mass.
Less water in the Mediterranean.
But again, there is tides, right? If you were to Lemonbird, stop. Lemonbird, you're waffling. Stop. If you were to do the maths based on the mass of all the water and the salt and everything in the Red Sea, it would show you that it's correct. There is no inconsistencies. It all matches.
More tide.
I've literally just explained that. There is no inconsistencies. All of the tides on Earth, tides in the Great Lakes in America, tides on the big oceans, tides on the littler seas, it all matches our model.
Connected ocean water, but disconnected bodies tend not to have any tides connected to an ocean source.
You mean like the straight interval? Yeah, they do have tides. There's water flowing through them. I mean, I've explained it so many ways. Team, do you want to, or Sean, do you want to try and explain it better?
I believe Sean had to leave right now.
All right.
Now, so on tides, the way I understand it, the easiest way to explain it is it has much more to do with the shape of the basin that the water sits in than it does to have to do with the strength of gravity. The strength of gravity, it increases, causing more of or water to bunch up on that side. But it also has more to do with not just the force, but also the pressures that are involved from the shape of the sea floor and all that. So I think it's more of a complicated. It has more of a complicated meaning or explanation than any of us are even qualified to give. Now I'm totally willing to listen to you, Lemonbird, if you want to talk tidal theory, but tidal theory is a very complicated science. So it does have to do with the gravitational pull. It does have to do with forces that are involved, and it also has to deal with pressures that are generated from the shape of the basin that the water is sitting on.
All right. So let me ask you a simple question, Lemonbird. Okay. So my main point with the tides is that there's two high tides at the same time. All right. Okay. So you're going to have a high tide in the UK. And then you're going to have a high tide on exactly the opposite side of the world at the same time. How is that explained by the flat Earth if it's just electromagnetism, if the moon is only on one side? How would it make a high tide on the other side as well?
If the moon going over, eventually it'll circle to the other side and possibly cause a tide over there. But the thing is, the gravimetric ball are the main thing that needs to be challenged here, because we do not see gravity pulling the balls anywhere here on Earth. We don't see it.
And that's a straw man. Lemonbird, let's stop using the straw mans, because that is a straw man. Our model doesn't say that should happen.
And if you care to verify it.
Yeah, but Lemonbird, it's not a problem because our model doesn't say that should happen. So what you're doing there is a straw man.
Is a general template for materialism to away from the Word of God and have another.
I don't care about God. That's nothing to do with this.
Gravity force.
No, again, it's nothing to do with God. It's just maths and physics. Nothing to do with God. Just maths and physics. Our maths and physics explains it. Again. No, wait. Again, if the moon is causing the tides and it's electromagnetism like you postulate, then how is it that there is a high tide on the side that the moon isn't on? There's no electromagnetism over there, according to you, because the moon's causing electromagnetism, which is causing the high tide where it is. But on the other side of the world, there is also a high tide. Sorry?
The moon and the sun and probably anything else that's up there too. I'd probably go with the electromagnetic of the sun and the moon.
So when you can see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time. Right, Lemonbird, wait. Lemonbird, wait. So when you can see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time, both on the same side of the flat Earth, yet there's still a tide on the other side.
I'd have to look into it, but
there isn't an answer.
I project gravity as all forming force. Things fall down, but until you can show me a vision going from the surface of the Earth down to the center of the Earth's mass, gravity will continue to be theoretical and occult.
No, nothing about gravity is theoretical. Gravity is an established fact.
I'd go with the ether being eventually absorbed in and out of matter.
We talked about that. The ether's been disproven by Malcolm Morley, so we don't need to talk about the ether because that's been disproven.
It was abolished to maintain Copernicanism.
It wasn't abolished. It was disproven. There's a difference.
Another problem with tides is it does a switch that is very ad hoc. Southern Israelite also pointed out that tidal theory is a continuum mechanical mechanics. Usually when you're talking you have mass
All right.
to act on, which means you need to quantify that stuff and show its consistent activity on that amount of stuff. With
it's getting very
particles,
hard to understand you. You keep
but then
cutting
they
out.
split mechanics about the mass of the water on the Earth as just one continuum acting as one unit all throughout the planet, despite the fact that it doesn't even do this. Very ad hoc, and that ad hoc nature shows you that they're just cobbling together a bunch of stuff.
No, again,
Let's look into this theory.
There is no ad hocness. It is all empirical observation. Now, I've got a super chat directly for you, if you bear with me. Valis for $10. Lemonbird. If the sun and moon were circling the Earth within a dome, the shadow on the moon would shift throughout the night and be different depending on where you live. Why do we not see that?
Throughout the night, that assumes that the sun is giving the moon light. The moon is its own light.
Can you back that up with any?
Tell by the temperature, the sun rays can be focused to a laser heat ray with a magnifying glass.
No. We've gone over that. That's not the case. First off, right, Lemonbird,
a totally different light.
Lemonbird. First off, look at the moon that I'm showing you. There is shadows within the craters on the moon. Right, there's no way that a self-illuminating body could do that. Number two, moonlight is not cold. Sean Hufford has conclusively proven this by showing that the same effects of heat, shade being warmer and moonlight being and the non-shade being colder when the moon isn't even there. What you are referring to is called radiated cooling, where heat is escaping naturally from the energy it receives during the day. And if there is something blocking that heat escaping, i.e. shade, it stays warmer, meaning that moonlight will be colder. But that doesn't mean that the moonlight is cold, because the moon, as I'm showing in this picture, is not self-illuminating. There are shadows in the craters. It is half lit randomly. There is no reason at all that this would be self-illuminating. There's nothing there that says it's self-illuminating. It reflects about 2% of sunlight. Simple as that.
Hey, Lemonbird, can I ask you a question? Lemonbird, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Now, for the moonlight to be cooling, something down, it would have to have like some kind of way of stealing molecular motion from whatever the light is hitting. Okay, but we know that light carries energy. E equals PC, or really it's E squared equals PC squared, but E equals PC, and where P is the momentum and C is the speed of light. And momentum is based on the wavelength of the light. So for you to be able to basically say that there was a negative momentum, all right, then you would also have to say that it had a negative wavelength of light. Do you have any evidence to support anything other than to say to prove how I'm being wrong right now?
Well, that's the nature of if the moon is staying absorptive, or takes energy electrically in between the moon. We're starting off the moon absorbing it. That could be the phenomenon that we're seeing. We'd have to look into this from different standpoints. And even during a new moon, when you don't see the moon, it may be there just unseen and absorb the light and LED light.
So, Lemonbird, you are
electrical doesn't get away.
You're really cutting out, and it's getting kind of hard to understand what you're saying. But basically, what you're saying there goes against the laws of entropy. Second law of thermodynamics and everything actually disproves what you're saying. But I think we're going to call it here tonight. Mainly because it's kind of getting hard to understand what you're saying. There's an issue with the connection, I'm not sure. But yeah, we're gonna call it here for tonight. And you're welcome to come back another time. We'll try and get the connection sorted, and we can have another discussion another day. We've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes, so I think that's been a good night's conversation for us. I know that Jared 82 Productions is doing a special Veterans Day panel which I'm going to jump on in a bit. And team, I hope you'll join me on that as well.
Yeah, I just
Thank you,
messaged him a
everyone.
while back and told him that I need to eat some food and feed my kid. But after that,
Yeah.
I should be back and ready to go.
But Lemonbird, I want to say thank you for joining me tonight. It's always an interesting discussion with you. Nothing ever of substance, but yeah, we can definitely carry this on another time. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. I've read all the super chats, so I've tried to keep up with them as we went along. Guys, if you want to get one of these Riley Dumb Fuck of the Year t-shirts, the link is in the description right now. It's getting close to that time where we're going to be nominating the Dumb Fucks, and I really want Riley to win. JM is losing right now. Lemonbird, who do you think is going to win Dumb Fuck of the Year?
Oh, I think it would have to be. Oh, shoot. I think I would be the forerunner for that one. I'd have to go with myself.
No.
Yourself. You want to win Dumb Fuck of the
No,
Year?
Lemonbird, I'm going to tell you something, man. There's no way you're winning this year. Let me go ahead and just exclude you right now because there's so much more dumb fuckery that's been going on that you have no chance of winning, even if you tried at this point. Are you familiar with JM Truth and what he said lately?
What do you say?
Oh, well, I mean, he just says a bunch of dumb things. Too much to go over. And then there's also Anthony Riley, who basically he's trying at this point. He's trying. He peed on he had a live stream during his live stream the other day.
Yeah. Peed in a bottle live on stream.
Notice your very interesting shirt you have there.
Yeah. You should get yourself one from my store.
Oh, we heard.
I've also got I don't know if you've seen this, but it's my little Anthony Riley figure.
Oh, Ellen.
I'm sure Riley loves that, to be honest. But yeah. But guys, we're going to call it there tonight. I'm going to 82 Productions. If one of my mods wants to post the link to Jared's channel in the chat, we're going to go over and have a talk on there about Veterans Day and stuff. Lemonbird, thank you for joining me. Sean Hufford had to leave, but thank you, Sean, as always, for being here.
Hey,
Team,
don't forget to remind people about our show on Wednesday.
yes, Wednesday is, oh my God, I'm so excited for this because on Wednesday we have the Mick West on Science or Satire on Team's channel. I am really, really looking forward to that. I think I made Team's nipples hard when I told him that I managed to get Mick West.
Oh, dude, you did. You absolutely did. I was like, when you said that, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, wow, there's a God. I prayed about this a few weeks ago, and there's a God, yes.
And then Saturday on my channel, Red's Rhetoric is going to be facing the Infinite Plane Society in a discussion about whether the ISS is real. I was going to be doing that debate, guys, right? I know that Reds is the guy who knows everything about the ISS. So I messaged Reds and I was like, hey, I'm debating someone about the ISS. Have you got any pointers for me? And he replied, yes, let me do it. So I'm letting Reds do it. Reds is going to be debating the Infinite Plane Society about whether the ISS is real, because he's far more qualified than I to do that. I would pretty much just be using his evidence. So that'll be fun. Tomorrow, I will have my new episode of Flerfs Are Idiots out. This is the thumbnail. I think it's a really good episode, guys. I've had a lot of fun putting this one together. But for now, if you guys want to head over to Jared's channel for Veterans Day, that is all for tonight. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flatter. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat.